Real Estate Talk NYC, baby.
All right.
You got it. Turn it on.
Okay. On top. Oh. Here we go.
All right, let me see what the first one is. All right, so the first one I'm going to do is a tenant who pays late something I should be more active with, meaning tell them not to do it, or should I be more understanding about it?
All right, don't worry about it. We'll do that. And then afterwards, I'll jump onto that one.
All right, cool.
Okay. Now,
Here's a pen. Makes it
start.
more sophisticated. How you doing, everyone? This is Real Estate Talk NYC. Take two.
Fucking spam calls.
This is Real Estate Talk NYC. This is Joey.
This fell?
And today we're going to do a mailbag. You know, since we started this site and the YouTube page, we've gotten a lot of inquiries.
A lot of responses.
Yeah, a lot of help that people want. I don't feel it's right to mention the names, so we're just going to keep it with just strictly the questions. And hopefully this helps you guys and betters you guys for your business and, you know, moves you forward in the right direction. So, Phil, if you want to start.
Yeah, well, we have our first caller. And he mentioned
It's emails.
Emails. So we mentioned over here from our email, okay, is a tenant who pays late something I should be more active with? Meaning, tell them not to do it, or should I be more understanding about it? So, what's your take?
Person that pays late, it depends. If the person's a new tenant and they right away after a few months they pay late, then that's a tricky one. If it's an older tenant that's always paid years and years, and then they happen to pay late now, you know their credentials, you know their resume, you know that they probably really going through some stuff. So you might want to be more understanding. But if it's a new tenant and all of a sudden they move in 3 months later, they pay late, or you got to get a read of each tenant. Like some tenants, they don't prioritize the rent first.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with
Christmas time, right? The garbages are full of Christmas presents, but then where's your rent? So what I like to say is, because they know about the late one, we give them a rider. The rider says, you pay after the 10th, you pay $35. So they always tell me, well, if I have until the 10th, like a credit card, I could pay up until the 10th. And I tell them, yeah, but when you come in late all the time, you can come in late at a job, but when you come in late all the time, that's not a good thing. That's a disrespect. I say the same thing with the rent. The late fee is there, just like when you're late at work, but you shouldn't abuse it and always pay on the 9th, because I want to get my bills done. I want to get this all settled and moved on. So I give a little combat back and forth, and I really try to push them to pay in the first few days. What about you, Phil?
No, I do the same thing. Basically, it should be at least no matter till the 5th. I take it like that, because it happens where you wind up chasing the tenants all the time in regards to, what days, the 18th, the 20th, already now they're paying at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Now you're paying your bills in order to catch up for rent that's supposed to be due before the timeline, because most of your bills are due the 12th, the 15th, the 17th of the month. So now you're dishing out money out of your pocket in order to collect back. And most of the times, what I've noticed that I've been hearing with a lot of the older generation landlords is they're taking money out of their savings account in order to cover bills, in order to get that money back. And sometimes what happens is that other situations happen, and they're using that kind of money in other bills, so they're not putting that money back into their savings account. So eventually it becomes like a burden, because then, they have to make a decision after so many months, a year goes by, what are they going to do with the house? Are they going to put it up for sale, or are they going to keep it? Now, that's the tenants then, that have to make a decision too, because see, a lot of the tenants complain that rents are going up and this is going up and this. Well, you know what? A lot of that stuff attributes to reasons why, rents go up, because now all of a sudden these landlords, they can't afford their bills. You're running late with your bills, or you're not paying rent at all because you choose not to, or what have you. Now you're putting, if the landlord has a mortgage still on that property, now you're putting pressure on that landlord where he's going to say, you know what, I'm going to move on, and he's going to put the house up for sale. And what's going to happen is that the new landlord that's going to come in, they're going to have high bills because they're new landlords. Now, these landlords basically probably don't even know what to do as far as understanding, because they don't have as much money because they've been dishing out all that money on buying the property. Now what's going to happen is your rent is going to go up, and if you choose that you're not paying that rent anymore, what have you, now you're going to be forced to go be looking at another area. So a lot of people say, well, I'm now relocating, regentrifying, whatever it is that they want to call it today.
And also, like when my mom first started this business, she had a tenant that she allowed the rent to be paid late. And over time, the rent was getting more and more later. So she kept writing, like if she had to pay January 1st, she would write towards the end, she would write like February 15th to cash the check. So if you are loosey-goosey with their late fees and with the late pay and you don't implement anything, they abuse it because they don't want to pay rent. Rent is one of the biggest bills you have to pay. So, me and my brother stepped in back in the day and we made her sign the rider that said that she had to keep paying late fees every certain amount of days, every 15 days. Whatever you want to do on the rider, you can work your way around. But legally, the rider says you have to pay after 10 days. So we initiated a rider on her that says that she has to pay up until the 10th. If she pays after the 10th, then she has to pay $35. Once she signed that rider, which took a while for her to sign, then she paid finally on time. And she's been paying on time ever since. So you got to be careful. It's one of those kind of gut feeling things. You got to be careful and see, are they manipulating? Are they playing around? Do they spend a lot? Are they new tenants? Are they really in dire strait? Did they really lose their job? So it's a personal thing to really look at. So we'll move on to the next one, right?
We'll move on to the next email.
All right. You got a light to giving me circles. All right, next one.
I'll read it.
Okay.
All right, next email. How much rent can I raise if the current rent under value of what rentals are?
Current rent, how much can I raise the current rent under value of what the rentals are? It depends on the building you own. If you own a 6-family or up, you're strapped. You have to do whatever the mayor or the governor says. So every year you get the increases. Like in New York, the last 8 years, there wasn't any increases, so we couldn't give it any increases. Now there's an increase of 5% on the rent. So owning a 6-family and up, you can do an increase. Under a 6-family, you have the liberty of raising the rent, but you got to be careful because if they're living there and you give them an increase, and the type of person can turn around and I had one tenant, I raised him $12 or whatever, $20, and he contacted the city on me. I found out through other people about my sidewalk, and he made me change my sidewalk because it had cracks and bumps. He paid the rent, but he also got me to do a whole new sidewalk. So he got even with me. So it's not so cut and dry to raise the rent. Ideally, the best scenario is when they move out, then you want to increase the rent and start from fresh. But it's one of those scenarios you got to feel it out, and you got to kind of explain to them, hey, you've been paying this rent for the last 4 years. I got a family to feed. I got bills to pay. Everything goes up. It's kind of like the dialogue you got to explain, right?
I differ. My answer to that would be very simple. If it's a free market rental apartment and what have you,
which is 5-family and below,
5-family and below,
New York.
What I normally do is I tell them straight off the bat that I'm going to be doing $25 per year. Every January, your rent goes up $25. The reason for that is that, regardless of what, all bills go up. And apparently what a lot of people don't know in owning real estate is that free market rental buildings, generally they raise the real estate taxes higher than if they were those that were 6-family and above. 6-family and above, you're basically strapped with the oblige of dealing with the leasing every year, 1 year lease, 2-year lease, and whatever the mayor, like Joe explained, his the percentage that you increase and everything. I unfortunately will have a different approach on that. I choose not to entertain those type of buildings. Joe here has many of those buildings that he deals with, and it's a lot of paperwork and what have you. I choose not to do that because of the fact that I like to live a little bit more free-minded. I'd rather do the work myself.
Yeah, not so strapped.
Not be so strapped with paperwork involved and basically having to deal with the tenants where they have the understanding up front how I work and everything. And then the other situation is if there's a leak or if there's a broken sidewalk or what have you, yeah, sure, I'm going to tackle it right away. Why wouldn't I? But at least this way I'm at liberty to do as I please as to when I want to do it. Not that I have to be doing things because I'm forced by the city to do so. Okay, there's certain times when maybe I might be strapped with something. Now, unfortunately, because of a situation like he just pointed out in regards to how the tenant got back on him, now all of a sudden I got to go borrowing money in order to fix a violation and what have you, pay extra money for no reason. And then afterwards, it's not like I could basically raise the rent on that tenant anymore, because basically he's already obligated to at least $12, $24, whatever it is that he raised. I feel that that's nonsense, but that's here in New York.
Okay, moving on to the next one.
Okay, next email. When a tenant has a broken or unserviceable refrigerator or stove, what should I do? Well, the question with that is very simple. You have either you call a service mechanic in order to adjust the gaskets, or deal with the dials and whatever dials and programs that they have between the stove and refrigerator, or you could just go out and buy a new one. I mean, at the end of the day, it's basically it's understandable.
How old
is the unit? How old is the stove? How old is the refrigerator? Things like that do happen, and like anything else, you shouldn't put it on the onus in order to on the tenant in order to go buy their own refrigerator and stove. The landlord should be responsible for that. One of the main reasons is because this way you don't have to always go in and out with the stove and refrigerator, because most of the times they moving companies, or depending on who basically helps them move, if the tenant moves out, then afterwards they're going to be dinging the hallways and breaking the stair railing and what have you, and there's a lot more costs involved in that. But as a landlord, if you do that and you put it in there, it's already in there, they're not taking it. They're basically taking their belongings, and that's left behind, and it's up to you to basically clean it out and what have you.
Yeah, so basically, it's one of those things, like the same thing like a late fee. You have to have judgment. You look at the refrigerator, you see the condition of it, and you say to yourself, is it worth it? Because parts for these stoves and parts for these refrigerators are really pricey, and nowadays a refrigerator is about $500 here in New York, or a stove too. So you make that the executive decision to say, okay, do I call my fridge and stove repair person to come in? Or you ask them, you say, can you give me a free estimate? Can you have, I have a guy I've been using for years. Can you come in and take a look and see what you think it looks like? Maybe he'll charge you like $50, $75 just to look at it. If he says it's too far gone, get a new one, then you get a new one. But like just the other day, I changed what's called a gasket, the rubber seal around the door of the refrigerator. I went to this site called partsselect.com, and that seal, this rubber seal for the freezer door, tiny freezer door, cost me $70. So, a refrigerator is $500, the seal was $70. So you make do. His refrigerator wasn't the newest, but I changed it. And for now, it's holding up. But you kind of have to make the decision, because you don't want things to be falling. If the refrigerator, like a car, is falling apart completely, don't go and spend the money for a brand new gasket, and then the whole engine of the refrigerator goes. And now you have a brand new gasket, and you got to toss the refrigerator. So inspect it. Maybe have a guy that you can trust that can go there. I have my guy. He goes there. He gives me the honest truth. He's like, Joe, this is too far gone, or Joe, this one costs a lot. This is a tiny repair. Sometimes the worst looking thing is the tiniest repair. So have a guy that you trust that does repairs, but don't jump right away to change and give a new stove, or change and give a new refrigerator, because that's going to cost you an arm and a leg. Sometimes it's the tiniest little thing, a screw, a nut, and that's going to be like a tiny price. So
yeah, and he's correct in that. And don't be afraid to call a service repairman, because most of them are very honest. They'll tell you that they'll come out to you. The service fee would be just to take a look, about $45 on an average. And normally, if, say, for example, you're changing the part and everything, they'll incorporate that $45 to the bill. So this way, you're basically not, getting ripped off. But, honestly, the guy's going to be charging you something just to come out to you, because, they have to make a living too. Yeah. So, like he said, you have to make a decision. Do you pay $500 for a new refrigerator, or you pay $70 for that new gasket? But like you said, also that depending on also how everything works on the unit, and say, for example, it's going to give you more life out of it. But at least this way you have in mind that already you did something to that refrigerator, you spent $70 to change the gasket on it, and you're going to be putting some money away to for a later date. So this way when your tenant calls you and says, oh, the unit went, at least this way you could call PC Richards or all those other brands that Home Depot, what have you, and then afterwards just order a new one and have it delivered, and easy peasy.
Or, again, it's a judgment call where you say, okay, my tenant pays a top premium rent. Do I want to do this, or do I want to, entertain them to keep them there and give them a brand new fridge? You kind of want to say, okay, you want to keep that high-paying tenant in that apartment. So why keep an old fridge, pay the $500, and you have this tenant who pays really well in your apartment for a long time? If you have a tenant who pays like really little below the value of the apartment, then you want to say, hey, you know what? I ain't going to deal. This guy or girl doesn't pay much. Let me just change the gasket or change whatever knobs because he doesn't pay a lot. That's how I look at it. I give my premium tenants are the ones that are super nice and they pay very well. And I give them the reward by giving them a brand new appliance. So it's like driving. It's a feel thing. You have to feel it out. There's really no correct answer. It's just, as you keep doing it for years, you kind of get a feel of where you need to go with this. But
yeah, and I agree with that. So we'll move on to the next email.
All right. Thank you guys for sending out your emails. I appreciate it. We appreciate it. We're here to help. So. Okay, how do they recover the suit for damages?
Yeah, I'll read that one.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
So, all right. We're going to do the next email. Phil, go ahead.
Next email is...
And we thank you for your emails.
Okay, so how does one recover or sue for damages without breaking the bank, not knowing where the tenant moved to, and then to collect? Oh, that's an easy one. What happens is most of the times as a landlord, you're basically going over, like the prospecting tenants. So you basically have their information as far as their social security number and what have you, but also where they work. So if you keep a good file and good record of the tenants, it's very highly, strongly considered to keep that person's social security information. The reason being is because this way, if God forbid you should happen to have this kind of situation and you encounter where the tenant owes you a lot of money per money damages that he or she did to the house, if they owe you rent or back rent, and in order, not as far as getting even with that tenant, sometimes it's better just to claim a loss and move on. But depending on also how much damages were done. If it's, say, on my behalf, I feel that if, say, for example, it's anything more than $10,000, yeah, I would pursue it. And meaning the fact that if you basically bring the tenant to court and all of a sudden you're at the end where you finally get a judgment on the tenant, and that judgment as far as, like where the person has to leave or get an eviction or what have you. So if it goes as far as going to contacting the marshal's office in order to get the marshal to reclaim your apartment, now so once you get that that apartment back and you have the the paperwork set up by the marshal, I would strongly consider in order to file a garnishment on that person's social security number. So this way, what happens is that most of the times the garnishment, the way it works is that they would charge a minimum of 9% on their money. So you pay like a small sum to the marshal's office to put in a garnishment on that person's social security number. And if they are working on it and they get a W-2 form and everything, the marshal's office will basically contact that person's job and HR, Human Resource Center, and they'll have like a 9 or 10% of their person's wages garnished in order in favor to get your money back. And normally, this is very successful. I remember one time I had done that on a tenant that basically owed me a lot of money. The only reason why I feverishly approached her was because of the fact that she was just somebody that needed to teach her a lesson, because these people sometimes they get away too much. So I decided to go ahead and, go through with it. I garnished her wages and everything. I was getting on, I believe at that time, I'm talking about 20 years ago. At that time, she owed me about, I think it was $8,000, which that was a lot of money at that point. And the 20 grand with the interest and everything, she was paying me about $112 per month, which was garnished from her wages. She had a very good job, so no matter what, she had to pay it, because she wasn't going to say, you know what, I'm going to go to another company, because regardless of where they go to, they're always going to be obligated to pay me back, because that garnishment, enforces their Social Security and their information regardless of where they go. Usually it takes a little bit of time, but then it goes a little bit more than that. Sometimes it's up to the tenant's best interest to reach out to you and say, you know what, listen, I understand I owe you, say, $10,000. Can I give you $5,000 and call it a day? Sometimes it's up to you. You could probably say, you know what, I'll claim a loss and take the $5,000. At least this way, that person was honorable in order to justify the wrong. That it said, it works. Do you wish to approach it as a landlord? Sometimes yes, sometimes no, depending on, it's your judgment, depending on how much the loss is and everything. Because normally you could go through the insurance company. Insurance company would pay you for the difference and the differential for whatever money damages that happen to the apartment. That's the reason why you pay insurance. And there's a whole situation that comes about that. So
you got to feel it out.
You have to feel it out. That's on your judgment.
Yeah. So basically, like Phil said, I'm just jumping on that. Is that you got to feel it out. If you know that this tenant was a troublemaker, super duper troublemaker, listen, that's your house. They know where your house is. So if you want to garnish their wages with the marshal and you pay their fee, you go ahead. If the apartment is like super damaged, yeah, you want to try to get that money back. You just got to make sure when you rent the apartment with them that you get their social security number, their work papers. Those things are super important, especially a social security number. And that's how the marshal will get them. So you have to have in small claims court, you have to take them to garnish the wages, but you have to be done with the court where they evict her, and it has to be a positive outcome. I mean, if you pay her off cash for keys, you can't garnish her wages anymore because you agreed that you're paying her to leave. But if you had a successful court and she got evicted, then you go to the marshal's office and then you can garnish her wages through that. And again, you need that social security number, and then you have to make the decision. Is this a person I really want to rattle even more, or do I want to kind of close my eyes and let it go? Like we talked about in the previous video, in this type of business, especially in New York, being a landlord, you're going to lose money. So this is one of them. You lose the money and you have peace of mind because they know where your building is. They know where your property is. They can break windows. They can do a lot of stuff. So, you got to weigh out the options. Is it worth it to do it? Is the damages unbelievable that you want to get? Or is it a couple of thousand that you can be okay with and just move on and just re-rent the apartment, fix it, and whatnot? So it's really a decision-based thing where you got to feel it out on your own gut feeling.
All right, with that said, moving on to the next email.
I think that's the last page.
Yeah, it is the last page. Here we go with another email. My landlord doesn't allow me to use space in the basement. The basement is very big and it's empty, and I have some extra stuff where I could utilize some extra space if he's willing to take back a fee. I would like to put some stuff in his basement for storage. Well, with that said, I understand the fact of need for storage because the space in New York for a lot of apartments are very, very small. So yeah, then what happens is that the city's forcing a lot of people to use self-storage and pay for an extra storage and what have you. They charge astronomical fees. A lot of people that I encounter, they're kind of funny in regards to the fact that they're paying $1,800 a month rent. And then they're questioning, like all these extra things with storage. Meanwhile, what they're not looking at and what they're not telling you, especially when all of a sudden, like the landlord says, okay, well, I have to increase your rent an extra $25, $50 going forward, they would have a problem with that because a lot of them, they have things in storage where at a base minimum, an 8x9 usually costs about $500 at a self-storage unit facility. So now, if you think about it, with that extra 500 and you add it to the 1800, you're paying 2300. You might want to inquire in getting yourself a bigger apartment if you're able to afford that. Now, going back to the question, well, a lot of landlords, they refuse renting out, or basically letting tenants, use, stuff in the basement is because, say, for example, you have really good stuff. Now, out of kindness of my own heart, being a landlord and everything, I allow you as a tenant to put stuff in my basement. Now, say, for example, we have a hurricane or whatever the story may be, and now all of a sudden there's major flooding in the basement, okay? And most of the stuff that basically you put down there was all washed out. Maybe personal stuff, maybe, like things that, like you wanted to hold on to it because of personal memorabilia, what have you. Things that, like are very personal to you as a tenant. Well, what happens is that now it gets washed out. Now you yourself, because you chose that you wanted to put something in the landlord's basement, the landlord allowed you to do it, you're going to be angry and you're going to say to the landlord that he basically needs to give you money in regards to the fact that the stuff was washed out because of the flooding, whatever the story may be. Listen, it's easier to just keep the basement empty for a lot of reasons. One, if in case a plumber has to go down there for whatever reason, he doesn't have to go over other people's stuff in order to get to wherever it is that he has to fix. Two, same thing, an electrician, he doesn't have to go over everybody. It also, it basically doesn't cause a lot of problems such as roaches or what have you, because if you bring cardboard or what have you, that itself, is an attraction for cockroaches to get involved. The exterminator exterminates. But sometimes if you have all that, that's a waste of money, because what happens is that if you have your basement cleaned out and it's free and clear, it's easier for everybody, because what happens is the landlord doesn't have to worry about anybody tripping in the basement or getting hurt or just raising issues. That's basically the reason why, it's best to keep it empty.
Yeah, I mean, and also, if it's a basement that's dug through and you're in like 5 feet of dirt in the basement, the moisture level is really high. So I've seen it where, people leave stuff down there, or I've left stuff, and like even clothing can get full of mold because, there's not a lot of breathability in a basement. So, it doesn't even have to be flooding. It could be also just years. It could also be years going by that the moisture gets into the storage, and it just starts creating mold. So it's never a good thing to have people have storage unless it's well ventilated, and again, like bugs, because you're dug into dirt, so you're gonna always get little critters. So we as landlords, we don't want to be liable for your stuff. I know you have good stuff, so it's best to leave it to the experts, which is like these storage houses that have storages above ground, that keep it well ventilated, that have it all set up purposely so that your goods, all your clothing and everything else is going to look the same as the day you put into it 10 years later. So we try to stay away from the storage of the basement because of all those reasons, because it's not even about the money or trying to help you, it's about keeping your stuff looking good for years.
Right. Now, going forward, we'll take the last email and then we'll call it a day.
What do you got?
All right, so the last email is, why is my landlord always on my back in regards to the receptacles, recycles and regular trash? Well, this is basically a really an everyday question, because I could tell you, if you recycle and you keep things, per the way the city wants it, and you keep your cardboard with the cardboard products, your glass and plastics with the glass and plastics, and your trash with your trash, it makes it easier for the fact that the landlord could keep things clean and basically have it roach and rodent free. Most buildings in New York, it's under the city law that you have to put your receptacles in the basement. It's up to the landlord's responsibility to have somebody always, take out the garbage for garbage night as well as clean basically the receptacles and keep everything at a neat area, because you don't want to have that garbage juice spilled everywhere and that nasty smell carrying over into the building. Those that are lucky, they're able to put it in the front of the house. That's a great thing, because it keeps most of the stuff clean. But I'm against that. Only reason being is because I feel that when you have like garbage cans and stuff on the outside, you basically, if you're not keeping up with your stuff, you could also inconvenience your neighbor, because rodents and cockroaches could spew over to the next building. Because all you need is one bad person, regardless if it's tenant or landlord, to mess it up for everybody else. And I also witnessed a few times where I had to backtrack and go after some of my tenants, where they'll just think it's funny. They don't want to run down the garbage downstairs because, they don't want to go running up or down a flight of stairs. So they'll basically throw the garbage right out the window because they want to, make it land in the garbage area. 9 out of 10 times, what happens when a full bag of garbage hits the ground? It breaks and and it pops, and basically you have garbage all over the place. So what's going to happen is that tenant's going to turn around and say, "Oh, I didn't do it," and the landlord's responsible in order to clean it up. Which, if the landlord isn't there on a daily basis, which it should, he should basically put it as an onus on himself, as well as respect, to his tenants, to give a pass by every day for at least a good 5-10 minutes to see what's going on a daily basis. Because this way, what happens is, if the tenants know that the landlord's always there, then it becomes like a respect thing where, mutual, they don't basically decide that, the landlord's never here, so they could do whatever they want, But if they see the landlord on a daily basis, they know to basically, upkeep, their area.
All right, let me do a question. All right, so the next question for the email would be, is it a good idea to have surveillance cameras put on every floor in the building, or is that too intrusive? So basically, yeah. So cameras, I have them in the building, and the cameras are a good idea, but sometimes tenants try to abuse it, where they want to see their packages, who touched their packages, who was in the hallway that day, who rang their bell. And, I'm kind of navigating, because I'm new to the camera industry, putting cameras in the building. I've done it for a few years now. And, I have to find a fine line of saying, okay, $25 every time you ask me. I'm still navigating through that. I'm trying to get a feel of it, because you don't want to overwhelm them, So, they ask me the silliest things that they want me to check. Who rang their bell the other night? Their package wasn't delivered. I mean, the package is the most famous one, but I've had others. So it's a good thing if you have a problematic tenant and you have footage and you let her know, hey, you threw your garbage on the floor. Here's footage. Or you let your dog pee in the hallway. Here's footage. Because if you don't show them footage, they're going to say it wasn't me. So it does help a lot. So there's a small percentage that it does get a little bit interesting with, people requesting this, requesting that, especially people who are bored at home all the time. They just want to know everything. Who was in the hallway at 2 a.m. So my answer would be yes, that's a good idea.
Well, to add to that, Joe, is if it were me, I would tell the tenant straight out, the security cameras there were purposely put in for its purpose, for security purposes only. Okay, if I need to be, basically babysitting a camera in order for your behalf in regards to who touched your packages and what have you, yeah, I feel when you were saying, what, $25, I would make it $50. Reason being is because if I got to go over there wasting my time looking through navigating my camera to please you as a tenant in regards to who touched your packages and what have you, well, who's going to pay me for my time and service for doing that? Okay, for me, I think that's nonsense. As far as being new to this new video industry, I would keep it, nice and simple. The reason for the cameras, for security purposes only, unless it happens to be something as far as a crime, or in regards to what's going on with your kids. Who knocked on the door, rang the bell, and there was somebody that was trying to get in with your kids or something. That's different, okay? But as far as major situations. But as far as packages and what have you, you know what? They're sent a picture all the time in regards to their belongings anyway from whoever it is, Amazon, FedEx, or whatever. They know already. So basically, that for me, I believe that's a waste of time. But you know, this is the new world that we're living into.
And another thing that's been coming up for my tenants, which is a new world now, is that they're all upset that their packages are getting stolen, and they want to have like some different setup with like the UPS driver gets the key, put a lockbox in front of the building, and keep the door locked in front. You know, UPS drivers are always changing. People like the door open because they don't bring the key sometimes. So there's a little like click it on the side of the door on one property I have, and you know, people open it and close it depending on how they want it. You know, if they're going out to the deli or they're going out and they want to come back, they leave the door open. Somebody can come and steal the package. So it's one of those variables that's uncontrollable, you know. So what I do suggest they do is that they get a post office box. You know, you pay like $160 a year and you have everything sent there. Or the second option is you put a little message when you're buying a product saying, hey, can you please only give it to me when you ring the bell? Make sure I'm home, or bring it to the post office and I'll pick it up there. You leave your package in the hallway. Most likely somebody's going to take it, and you know, I'm not responsible, and it's very hard to keep the door in the front locked and to give a key to a UPS driver, a FedEx driver, because those jobs are always interchanging, you know. So how many keys are going to be owned in the building? That's not a good thing either. So it's an ongoing thing with me, I'm sure with Phil too, with these stolen packages and tenants being upset about it, and they want to get more things to happen. And the best answer, get a P.O. box. Go to your P.O. box every day, which I do, and check your mail and check everything and send everything there. And that's it. You know, you pay one fee once a year and you're good to go.
Well, with that said, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Real Estate Talk NYC. Thanks for tuning in. And thanks everyone and our viewers for tuning in to Real Estate Talk NYC. Until next time, don't forget to subscribe. And we'll coming out with more information. But keep those emails coming, because basically we're going to keep doing it on a periodic basis in regards to reading off people's emails. And there's many more emails to read, but I'm not going to entertain each and every one
at this moment in this video. We don't want to make this video too long. So yeah, we thank you, and please subscribe to our channel. Give us the support, and we'll keep shooting out great content for you. And we're going to have interviews down the road with important people in the real estate industry and give you guys a lot of info, you know. And we're here for you guys. If you guys have suggestions of what videos you want to see, email us, write us, and tell us what you want to see. You know, put the comment in this video on what you want to see, and we'll do our best to accommodate you guys. All right?
And don't forget to subscribe.
All right, guys. Take care.
Bye-bye.